SQL constraints. There are different type of constraints available. Constraints will tell us that which type of value will go to which particular column, under which particular column, right? So we can use the constraint at the time of creating the table with the help of create table statement, or after the table creation, we can add these constraint using alter table also. So before the table creation, during creation of the table, we can do that. And after the table created, we can use the alter command to add those constraint into the column. So we have not null constraint. Not null constraint is telling us like we cannot insert the null value into that particular column. Unique will tell like always you have to insert the unique value for that particular column. Primary key will tell that it has the property of both not null and unique, and primary key is the key constraint in a table, that attribute which can uniquely identify a row. So for that we use primary key, and primary key has the both the property not null and unique. Then there is a foreign key constraint also. Foreign key will use the foreign key so that two table will be connected with each other. So one table primary key could become the other table primary key. That example also we have seen in the last class. Then we have the check command. Check command will tell us that which type of value we are putting inside that particular column. So for that we check the value, and then those value which are allowed, we enter it. Then there is a default constraint. If we are not inserting any data, then the default value will be inserted by default into that particular field. So all those constraints we have already used with the example, and we have already created the table using all those constraints. These are the syntax of the not null. So while creating the table, we can use not null. These are how we can use unique. Then the unique constraint using the alter command also we can use. Alter table name, add unique command on a particular column name under which we want to put the unique command. We can, or we want to make it unique, I can do that. Or I can use the alter command with alter table name, add constraint and the constraint name of it, and then which constraint we want to add, that is unique, on which table, which column. So here it has used in PID as well as last name. In both they have used unique constraint after creating the table. So after creating the table, if you want to add some constraint like unique, we can do that with the help of alter command. We can also drop that particular constraint if we want. If we're thinking like wrongly we have added those constraints, so we can drop it later with the help of again alter command, alter table name, drop constraint name. So in that way the constraint will be deleted. Then primary key. So as we have discussed, like primary key is having both the property not null and unique. So primary key could be used it like this at the time of creation of the table, or after creating the table, we can add the primary key later on with the help of alter command. Alter table name, add primary key, and in which we want to create the primary key, that column name we have to use. Just like here, alter table name, add constraint name, and the constraint, what constraint that we have, and the column name of it. So here the constraint name could be any variable. So this is not the keyword. This is the variable that a user can enter and should remember. Add constraint alter table all four, 1, 2, 3, 4, as well as primary key are the keywords. So alter is a keyword, table is a keyword, this is the table name, then add is a keyword, constraint is a keyword, then constraint ID, which it is written like pk underscore person ID, is the user defined value, any variable. Then primary key is the keyword, and then PID is the column name that you have already given while creating the table. So this is also not the keyword. Then we have, if you want to delete the primary key constraint for that particular column, so we can always use drop command, alter table, table name, drop constraint, and then constraint ID. Then we have the foreign key. So we talked about the foreign key. A foreign key is one table point to a primary key to another table. So one table primary key could become the foreign key of another table, so that the two table could be relate two table could be relate with each other. Like here, this is a person table, this is the order table. So in that order table, this PID is the foreign key, and here this PID is the primary key. Foreign key constraint, we can add it like this into foreign keys references, and then the table name, and then ID of that particular foreign key. Or we can later on, we can add constraint name. Then we have the foreign key column ID references to the table, and the ID of the column ID of that particular primary key. So this is the primary key in the persons table. This is the foreign key of the order table. We can later on add the foreign key constraint like with the help of alter command also, with this and with this. Here there is no constraint ID or the constraint name. Here we have this constraint name. We can always drop the foreign key with the help of constraint name. So if it doesn't have the constraint name, we cannot do that. But if we think that later on we need to delete some of the constraints, so always put the constraint name on it, so that you can later on use it for deleting or dropping that particular constraint. Now the check constraint, we know that what is a check constraint. So check constraint are checking the recommended values that can be entered into the column under that particular column. So let's say here we are putting the check constraint as PID should be always greater than 0. So whatever PID you will put here, person ID, it should always be greater than 0. So that value only it is going to take. Or you can have this check constraint like PID should always be greater than 0, and city should be Sandness. So this is the city that under which the city column is. We cannot put other than this particular city. So that is the check constraint we have already imposed. Then we can drop that check constraint also with the help of drop command. Last one is the default constraint. Default constraint is, let's say if you are not inserting that particular value, so default value could be taken. So for that, we'll use the default command. So default and then name of that particular value. So let's say the city, if you're not putting any city, so Sandness as the city will be taken in the under that particular column. Or likewise this, if you want to put the order date and you don't want to put by your own, then it will be taken from the system. So get date is a function which will take the system's date and it will put into the order date. Again, if you want to modify the default constraint, you can do that. With the help of that, we can also drop that particular default